Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to be completing a sample CELPIP Task 2 survey task response. I'll be walking you through every step of the way. Stay with me. Alright guys, let's start by taking a look at the task itself. Now, in a survey task, there are always two parts. The first part is the part that is called the description. And in the description, you can expect to see a scenario like who you are, what's happening, and this provides some background for what you're going to be later asked to write about. In this case, it's called the Children's Playground Survey. And here's the details that we can see. It says, the community center in your town wants to raise money in order to build a children's playground. They are considering possible events for raising the necessary funds. Now, this was the description. The other part is called the instructions, and that's where we are told what the survey is going to be about, and we are provided with the options that we need to choose from. In this case, it says, choose the option that you prefer. Why do you prefer your choice? Explain the reasons for your choice. Write about 150 to 200 words. So this part is always the same. Now, let's take a look at our two options. Option A says, organize an all-day festival. And option B says, organize a second-hand market. Now, mistake number one that a lot of students make is they jump into it. Especially under examination conditions, they feel pressed for time and they feel that they should rush things along because, the clock is ticking. But this is a very big mistake because as you're writing the survey, you will begin to realize that maybe your ideas weren't that great or that maybe you would have been better off choosing the other option. So my advice to you is, always take a moment to think about your reasons for both sides. This process is called brainstorming, and it shouldn't really take more than a few minutes, maybe 2-3 minutes tops. And what we will do is we'll write down any ideas that come to our mind, either to support that option or possibly to reject it. Now, you might be wondering, why would I even want to reject an option? But you got to remember that sometimes, in order to support one of the options, you need to reject the other side. And so even if you come up with reasons against one of the options, definitely write that down. Definitely consider that. It may be very useful to you later, further down the road. Now, in this case, I'm going to write down my reason. So I'm going to go with option A. Let's see, organizing an all-day festival. What advantages or possible disadvantages would that have for the city or the people who live in the city? Let's take a look. So it can be a nice social event. So that's one advantage, all-day festival. And it could be great for kids. Kids enjoy festivals. And we can also think that, in a way, it could be expensive, right? Because it's an all-day festival, and the town would have to spend a lot and organize a lot to make it attractive for the residents. How about option B? Let's take a look at option B. Let's see what we have to say about that option. And option B is organize a second-hand market. So we could argue that this is, economically sound. It's good for the economy, the local economy, I mean. So it's good for the local economy. That's one advantage. Another advantage would be it can, turn into a charity event. So charity event is something else that I would like to possibly discuss. And so I have my reasons. As long as you have two reasons or two ideas for each side, you should be good. Now, which of these ideas am I more comfortable expressing in English, or is it easier for me to explain, provide examples and details for? Now, in this particular case, I would like to go with option B, and my reasons are going to be, first of all, that it's good for the economy, for the local economy. That's a good reason. And also, I can support option B by possibly rejecting option A. And I could argue that an all-day festival would be expensive and therefore not that great an idea. So now that I have my ideas down, I have to see how I'll be organizing the survey itself. So obviously, I'm going to start with an introduction. Then I'm going to have two body paragraphs. Body paragraph 1, I will explain the whole idea that it's good for the economy. So good for the local economy. This would be the main idea of that paragraph. And let's check out body paragraph 2. In body paragraph 2, I'm going to have to come up with another main idea. This time, I'm going to say the other option is too expensive. So this is for option A, right? So there, I have my two main ideas, and I'm going to sum everything up with a conclusion paragraph. So what I just did is the brainstorming and the planning phase of writing the survey. So now that I have this down, I can begin by writing the introduction paragraph. Okay, what do we expect to see in a good introduction paragraph? Well, the first thing you need is to basically review the situation. So we can't just jump into it. A lot of students, unfortunately, they mistake the survey task for an email, and they start with "Dear City," city council members or something of the like. You don't need that. All you need to do is start with the introduction paragraph, so it's more like an essay, if you will, and begin by reviewing what is mentioned in the description part. So just repeat the fact that the community center wants to raise money in order to build a children's playground and that they're considering different events. But try to paraphrase. It's always better if you paraphrase and put those sentences in the description into your own in your own words. So watch what I'm going to do right now. So I can go with something like "I recently found out," right? So there are other expressions that you could use. You could say things like "it was brought to my attention," "I recently found out," or "I was told," or something of the like. So I'm going to go ahead and say, "I recently found out that the community center is planning to do what? To raise money for a new children's playground and is considering two fundraising events." Okay, notice that I did not mention the two options. I didn't say what the two options are. All I said is, well, I found out that you guys are planning this, and now I'm going to move on to the part where I mention what I think is the better option. So how can I say it? I can just jump into it and say I believe that a secondhand market is better, but you kind of want to mention the other option as well. You don't want to ignore that other option. So review both options, but then very clearly state which one you want to go with. Watch as I will do this here now. So although having an all-day festival might be a good idea. Notice I'm not mentioning my reasons. I'm just saying it can be a good idea. So, although having an all-day festival might be a good idea, I personally uh, feel it is better, or I personally believe we should uh, go with, or we should choose. Go with is it's something that we do use a lot, but after all, it is a phrasal verb, and you should try to avoid using phrasal verbs if you have a better single verb alternative. In this case, I'm going to say, I personally believe we should um, organize a second-hand market instead, right? Okay, that is pretty much everything you need in a good introduction. Now, some people also include a sentence that very briefly says what the purpose of the essay or the survey response is going to be. So something like, I will explain my reasons in the following paragraphs, right? Some people even go so far as to preview their reasons. They basically provide a glimpse into their reasons in the introduction paragraph. Now, I don't recommend it because it might end up being very redundant, because you're mentioning your reasons in the intro, you're delving into the details in the body paragraphs, and then you review it in the conclusion, which is a little too much. So instead of doing that, you could either say, I will explain my reasons in the following paragraphs, or just leave it out. If you think that it's very clear for the examiner that you will be explaining your reasons, and that depends on how you've written your introduction paragraph, how you started it, and how well you have expressed your opinion, then you could just leave this out, which is what I'm going to do here, because I feel that I'm already going to be writing a survey that's a little longer, and so I want to save on the number of words that I have at my disposal. Okay, now let's move on to the first body paragraph. Body paragraph 1, if you remember, the main idea is it's good for the local economy. That's what I want to say. I want to say it's good for the local economy. Now, how am I going to say that? Well, I'm going to start my paragraph with my main idea. Some people, they start explaining things only to indirectly refer to the main idea somewhere inside the body paragraph, or sometimes they place it at the very end, sort of like to wrap up the paragraph. I don't recommend that. It's always safer if you start your paragraph with the main idea. So let's see how we could possibly do this. So I'm going to start with a topic sentence that says, first of all, having an all-day, well, you know what? I actually want to start with the second one, right? With the second-hand market. So having a second-hand market would be great for our local economy. Okay, now someone might say, hey, what do you mean it's good for the local economy? Like, how is it going to be good for the local economy? So it is my responsibility to explain it in either 2 or 3 sentences. Now, remember that your score does depend to a certain extent on how well you have organized your ideas and how well you have elaborated and explained and provided possible examples for those ideas. So although we do have a word limit at 200 words, I strongly encourage you to include as many details, explanations, examples as you possibly can. And oftentimes, the best way to do this is to ask yourself the question, how? So I'm arguing here that a second-hand market would be good for the local economy. Okay, how is it good for the local economy? So I'm going to say many town residents uh, have garage sales in their backyards or in their front yards, right? Every week. If we decide to organize, whoops, sorry about that. Yep, there we go. If we decide to organize a second hand market, so we're not just doing, we're not just organizing a second-hand market. We are organizing a centralized second-hand market. We would be helping the town folk, or we could just say the residents, or not the residents, just residents as a whole. We would be helping residents to sell their second-hand goods, or used goods, we could say. They're used goods, because we've used second-hand, I believe, once or twice. So it would be helping residents to sell their used goods, and we could say use the money to buy new products. Okay, so this is an explanation, but I kind of want to round it off, right? Still, I haven't answered the question how. Okay, so what? They can sell their goods in the market, fine. And how is this going to be good for the economy? So I'm going to say something like, this will undoubtedly stimulate the local economy and lead to, we could say, what would it lead to? It would stimulate the economy and lead to higher sales, right? The idea is they're going to, sell their products, the things that they have, and then their goods, and they're going to go and buy new things. So this is going to stimulate the economy. Now, you see, I'm not being too fussy about the ideas right now. Why? Because I always have an opportunity to come back, read it again, and then change things that I feel are probably not working. So let's leave it there for now, and let's move on to the second body paragraph. Now, remember, in body paragraph 2, what we're doing is we're arguing not that organizing a second-hand market is great. We're rejecting the idea of an all-day festival, and I do recommend that you do so. Don't ignore one of the options. I've seen this countless times when a student has written a fairly decent essay, survey task response, but when you look at it, you feel that they've only paid attention to one of the options and they've somewhat ignored the other one. Try not to do that. Try to have a balanced structure when you are attempting this task. Okay, so body paragraph 2, expensive. So how am I going to start this paragraph? Again, I'm going to begin with the topic sentence, and that's very important. I have to summarize the idea in one sentence that appears at the beginning of my paragraph. And how am I going to signal that? Well, I'm going to start by saying something like, on the other hand, right? On the other hand, an all-day festival is not a good idea because it can be quite expensive to organize, right? That's the main idea. So I'm rejecting option A, and my reason is that it's just too expensive. Now, once again, someone might ask, how? Well, what do you mean it's expensive? In what way is it expensive? So I'm going to have to elaborate. And what am I going to say? I'm going to start by saying something like this. I can say festivals often involve, what do they involve? Uh, food stands, right? So food stands, rides, uh, exhibitions, right? And the like. These can be difficult and at times expensive to organize. Therefore, the city would need to, and so when we say the city, we mean the town council, was it, right? In the question, it says the community center on the town. So let's go with the community center organizers. So the community center organizers would need to prepare in advance and ensure that all necessary funds for this event are available, right? Okay, that's it. I have my two body paragraphs. One paragraph is supporting my option, which is option B, and one paragraph is rejecting the other option, which is option A. Okay, this leaves me with the final paragraph, which is the conclusion paragraph. Now, what do I do in the conclusion paragraph? Very simple. You just review your position along with your reasons. So you're going to have to say, I prefer option A or I prefer option B, depending on which one you choose. And here are my reasons. That's what you're going to do. So the way I'm going to do it, I'm going to say something like, to sum up, right? To sum up, based on what has been mentioned, right? So you kind of want to link what you're saying in the conclusion to what's mentioned in the body paragraph. So it's not a bad idea to include something like based on what has been mentioned. And then I'm going to say, I strongly believe that we would be, or not just we, so the town council would be better off organizing a second-hand market because it can be beneficial for the local economy and is a cheaper option compared to the all-day festival. And so there we have a nice 4-paragraph response. We have the introduction, we have 2 body paragraphs, and then we have a conclusion. Let's read it one more time just to make sure that everything's in the right place. So I recently found out that the community center is planning to raise money for a new children's playground and is considering 2 fundraising events. Okay, so I like it. I recently found out. Find out, again, that's another phrasal verb, right? To find out. Now, what can I say instead? I recently discovered, right? You could go with discovered. Even though I like find out, I don't think it's the end of the world if you say I found out, as long as everything else is in place. But just, to give you an idea as to what a single verb versus a phrasal verb, alternative looks like. So I recently discovered that the community center is planning to raise money for a new children's playground, and is considering 2 fundraising events. Although having an all-day festival might be a good idea, I personally believe we should organize a second-hand market instead. Okay? Don't think I need that comma here at the end. I could do without it. and I'm pretty satisfied with my introduction. Now, let's do the first body paragraph. First of all, having a second-hand market would be great for our local economy. Okay, many town residents have garage sales in their front yard every week. Okay, so what do we need? Have garage sales. I'm going to go ahead and say they hold garage sales in their front yard every week. Okay, if we decide to organize a centralized secondhand market, we would be helping residents to sell their used goods and use the money to buy new products. Okay, so I went with we. I could say if you decide to organize a organize a centralized secondhand market, you would be helping residents to sell their goods. So I'm gonna go ahead and use you. So if you decide to organize a centralized secondhand market, you would be helping residents to sell their used goods and use the money to buy new products. This will undoubtedly stimulate the local economy and lead to higher sales. I'm not very happy with the higher sales because it's a little ambiguous. So we could say lead to a better, or you know what? I could just get rid of it. So I could say will undoubtedly stimulate the local economy by encouraging, yeah, this one's not bad, by encouraging shopping, right? Because it is, like, it encourages people to go shopping, to buy things, and that's what stimulates the economy. So this will undoubtedly stimulate the local economy by encouraging shopping. I'm happy now. Next paragraph. On the other hand, an all-day festival is not a good idea because it can be quite expensive to organize. Festivals often involve food stands, rides, exhibitions, and the like. These can be difficult and at times expensive to organize. Therefore, the community center organizers would need to prepare in advance and ensure that all necessary funds for this event are available. To sum up, based on what has been mentioned, I strongly believe that the town council would be better off organizing a second-hand market because it can be beneficial for the local economy and is a cheaper option compared to the all-day festival. So notice that I reviewed both of my reasons. I didn't ignore any of them. And so there you go. That is a sample response to a survey task. Now, guys, if you enjoyed this video, please consider hitting the like button and subscribing to this channel, as I will be posting videos like this on a regular basis. If you found this video useful, you can also consider becoming a member of this channel. You can click on the member button right next to the subscribe button, and that way you will have access to more videos like this. And I have seen many students who relied on videos like this to compare their own performance against a standard response and also learn some nice vocab, grammatical structures, and even pick up a few ideas along the way. And these can really help you on the day of your test. So if you become a member of this channel, you will have access to more sample responses like this one. Anyway, thank you guys for watching this video, and good luck with your exam.